Hi everyone, Cody here. Welcome back to my garden. Well, today marks 2 years since my first video on this channel, and I think I'd like to just make a bit of an update 2 years later. See how things are growing, what's changed, what I'm doing differently, and all that good stuff. So how about I show you around? First, I'd like to mention all these dandelions. It's one of my favorite things about spring. So, lawnmower is actually broken, so haven't really gotten a chance to mow. But just looking at all these dandelions, I actually kind of like the look of this. Bees are absolutely loving this too, particularly these native bees. Not exactly sure what kind of bee that is. But dandelions are not technically native to North America, yet these native bees are still loving these dandelions. Also other kinds of pollinators. Honeybee right there on some ground ivy. I don't know if you can see. Oh, right there. Hi. As the ground ivy is all in bloom. All these little purple flowers. Bees love that too. Another bee on that dandelion. Sure seems to be a pollinator's paradise, if you ask me. So why don't I show you my greenhouse? So this is a new greenhouse. New tarp, new frame. I bought this new greenhouse just because the old tarp on my other one was like really falling apart, and I couldn't find a replacement tarp online anywhere that would fit this greenhouse, or fit the old greenhouse for that matter. So I just bought a whole new one, about the same size, but it's a little more heavy duty. You see these plastics are like UV lined and all that sort of thing, and it's the same amount of shelves and all that. It's still got the windows on each side, only they're bigger windows. But still got all my plants in here. So one thing that I'm doing new this year that you may have seen in my previous video is soil blocking. So basically that involves just this little contraption here, and you press this into a container with wet soil. Basically press it down, and then you release these blocks onto anything you can really put them in, really. I just use these boot tray mats, and you just plant right into those, and they hold their shape, especially when they dry out a little. They can be bottom watered, and so it's a great way on saving on not having to get those peat pellets all the time, or those little plastic seed starting trays that always fall apart in a year or two. So this one I got my tomatoes. Still a little small, but some of them are getting their first true sets of leaves, which are good. And here you may have seen me, remember when I planted the rosemary in my last video? Well, they're still here, rosemaries. They're tiny, but they're still alive. I think this is the longest I've actually been able to keep rosemary seedlings alive, so I attribute that all to these soil blocks. Over here I have a mixture of spaghetti squash and those loofah gourds you may remember from my last video, if you've seen it. So these loofah gourds, some of the leaves are kind of dying on them, but I think that's just they're losing their first sets of leaves and they're making new leaves, but that's kind of to be expected by having squash plants in these pots for so long. But I germination tested some spaghetti squash seeds that I saved, and they grew, so I just thought I'd plant them in here too, just so I have the squash all in one place kind of thing. We're going to have a lot of celery this year, hopefully, if I can keep it alive. Celery needs lots of water, so I'll have to plant it somewhere where it gets lots of water. Probably in my hugelkultur because it's a bit shaded there, and soil with all that organic matter dug into it. It'd probably hold the water way better for them. And I had celery there before and it did well, so let's probably plant it there too. Back here I got all my leeks. They're still doing great. And they're really growing in some clumps here, so get a lot of leeks this year, which is awesome. I like leeks. Here I got a bunch of herbs and just some random kinds of seedlings. This is wild daga. It's a mint family herb. Some sedative qualities, which I like. So these are my cannabis seedlings. And the thing I like about these is they are only going to contain CBD and almost no THC. So they're basically like hemp. Government cannabis stores have quite a better selection of seeds to choose from now, and these are varieties bred to contain almost no THC at all, which is more to my taste. This is some chives. It was just gifted to me at Seedy Saturday too, about a month ago, and got this there too. This is parsley. It's looking really nice. This is purple Thai basil, I believe. It's regular basil, regular sweet basil. I planted these ones. These are hollyhock seedlings. And this is, what was that again? Rainbow strawflower. And so they're actually really pretty. Go good in window boxes. Oopsie. And this is just a regular mint. Not exactly sure the variety. Might be spearmint or peppermint or something like that. It's a marigold seedling. And this is a pickling cucumber seedling. These are shoe fly plants. So it's actually a really cool looking flower. It's a nightshade, just like tomatoes and peppers kind of thing, but it's just for ornamental uses and for attracting pollinators and that sort of thing. And I guess for deterring flies. And these are Italian dandelions. And these are a red variety of dandelion. It'll be interesting to see how they turn out. Over here I got my cilantro. It's looking nice and healthy. Some marjoram back there. Now pennyroyal in here. Lemon balm here. These aren't herbs, these are columbines. And I have a spot plan for them. It's a holy basil, which is quite different from regular basil. It's more used for tea than in cooking. And here's my peanut plants. They're still doing great, so maybe I'll actually get some peanuts this year. We'll see. Here's my strawberry spinach. And it looks like I'm going to get lots this time. I can keep it alive. I've always struggled with growing strawberry spinach. But these are looking quite promising. And my anise hyssop seedlings. I have some anise hyssop, but I thought why not grow a lot more because I like it so much. And all down here are these pepper plants that I started in January, I believe. And they're still going strong, most of them. About 60 of them in total. All bell peppers, varieties of bell peppers, no hot peppers. So last fall, I had done something. I'd raked up a whole bunch of leaves, stuffed it in these trash bags, and I'm making leaf mold just from all the fallen leaves. So I think they technically take like 2 years to fully decompose, but I'm using some of them this year just as mulch. Over here in my plant sanctuary, just as a mulch. Seems to be working pretty good because these plants are growing pretty fast ever since I added it on. So probably all that good carbon in the soil and the leaves. And I had also amended it with biochar. So this is biochar. They had done a biochar kiln demonstration at CD Saturday, and I got to take some of it home with me. And biochar is an excellent soil amendment for healthy water retention and sequestering carbon and all that sort of thing, and gives good nutrients to the plants. And so basically you would just dig it into the soil and you're good to go. I'm probably going to use the rest of this biochar in these main vegetable gardens if I can, and see how it works. So I put more of those leaves that I'd saved into these flower boxes as mulch, and it seems to be working pretty nicely. Mainly just perennials that are coming back for now. These, I think they're bluebells, and also some muscamallows or something, and other perennials like these sweet williams. And happy to see this echinacea. It's coming back. Yay! This is the first time I've ever had it return for a second year. So, but I had bought this from an established plant, so that's probably why. Yeah, Veronica Speedwell and whatever that is. Lupins, all that. This garden is a work in progress, because you may remember it before, there were some tulips and daffodils and crocuses and all that over here, but our dog Sam, he decided to kind of make that his bed for a little while, and he was just laying on the plants all the time and crushing them, and a lot of the plants here just died or were really suffering. So that's why this netting is here, is to keep the dog from not coming back and just laying on it. So I have all this these mulched raspberry canes, so that's another deterrent as well as the rocks. And so I had moved the tulips and daffodils over here because the dog doesn't lay in these beds at all. And I didn't get any blooms this year, but that's understandable. I think they just need a chance to recover. Hopefully by next spring I'll have some nice tulip and daffodil blooms in these beds. But I think my new goal for this little garden here is to have that as a culinary herb garden, because it's right next to the kitchen inside. And so I had transplanted some oregano to here, and this the original thyme plant that was here died because of the dog laying on it all the time. But I had some creeping thyme growing elsewhere, and I thought I'd just plant that here too. Maybe it'll take over a bit. But creeping thyme is just another thyme plant. Tastes and smells exactly the same. It can be used interchangeably with regular cooking thyme. Only the difference is this one is a sprawling ground cover and the other one's more of a bush. And so I got whole bunch of mint growing back, just that you like to use in tea. I think it's a type of spearmint or something. So that survived just fine because mint is like indestructible. But I do plan on planting my other herbs here, particularly the annuals like the basils and the cilantros and that. Also perennials like parsley, and when I have my lemon balm here, I think that'd be a great spot for the lemon balm. And the nettle will eventually come down But I'm just keeping it here for now to kind of give a message to the dog not to lay here. And once it's all planted and the netting's removed, I'll have to just watch the dog to make sure he doesn't lay here again. I don't know why you'd want to. It's like these raspberry canes are pretty pokey. And so I actually have some dill that is growing here. Scattered a bunch of dill seeds and it's all growing, so it's good to see. A nice culinary herb garden. As for my plant sanctuary, it's kind of under renovations, if you'd say. I did a lot of weed pulling in here, just because I want to make room for some plants I actually want to actually grow better. And so I think a little bit of weeding was necessary. Still got all my favorites. This is tarragon. Pretty sure that's tarragon. I planted that last year and it's really growing back nicely. It's my wormwood again, making a full comeback. There was the original oregano that I had transplanted to the front, but I just took a section out of it. And then my hops are looking nice and bushy. And I redid my strings, so they're starting to climb the string already. And you see these white flowers, these are strawberries. Mixture of wild and domestic strawberries, as well as rhubarb there. The lupins right there. My gut feelings are going to flower this year. A little comfrey at the back, just like before. Looks like the comfrey is just about to flower. Pretty soon, I'd say. And stinging nettle here. Valerian is coming back indeed. And so that's where I dug up the roots last year. Used them in tea, which was really lovely. But some leftover valerian roots in the ground and probably a mixture from seeds that dropped as well. Valerian's coming back in full force. Here is the vegetable garden we built last year. And it's kind of getting taken over with weeds, but I've been pulling some weeds here because you still need the space to grow your desired vegetables and that sort of thing. So over here, these garden boxes I built a couple years ago, I just moved them here because this particular spot right here wasn't very good for growing because of all the rocks in the soil. And so I just put some raised beds here and filled them with soil. And so I have a feeling they're going to do much better for growing things in. I'm going to probably plant carrots and onions in these, and that'll be better for growing than it was before. But the rest of the spaces were actually really good for growing. But yeah, I'm still working on it, just kind of working on pulling weeds and that sort of thing. I'd actually mulched all the last year's plant debris. Kind of just crumbled it up in my hands and just left it on the soil. Just adds to the mulch. It should be great for growing in. This garden bed needs a lot of work. This is the original vegetable garden. Got a lot of stuff in here. Last year, year before, and the year before, and the year before. But it's really getting taken over by the weeds, so can't really let the weeds take over your actual plants, but just to control them enough so that you can kind of get the best of both worlds, because the weeds are still useful in a lot of ways, especially the dandelions. Excellent for eating. They're delicious, they're healthy, and they attract pollinators, so I like to keep some of them around at least. Here's some weeds I actually planted on purpose. These are chicory, and they're related to dandelions. They have the blue flowers. Roots can be used as a coffee substitute, just like the dandelion roots when roasted. And I like chicory, so I have a couple plants here growing, and I'm just going to leave them. And this is Bee's Friend, so this is all self-seeded Bee's friend plant I had here last year. Bees absolutely loved this. Here are the rhubarbs coming back. So I planted these from seed last year, and they're like fully taken off now. And so it's pretty awesome. Same with the strawberries. Some of these are ever bearing, some of these are June bearing. Look at the size of the leaves on that, that's pretty nice. Over here, this appears to be a whole bunch of calendula, which is an excellent bee plant. Excellent medicinal. And I know it's calendula because I had calendula here last year and it obviously self-seeded and now it's growing back. Hey Sam dog, how you doing today? Yeah? Good boy. So I actually have a whole new garden project going here in this dog run. And I'm going to have this whole area as a wildflower meadow. So with all kinds of wildflowers, poppies, cornflowers, you know, that sort of thing. Sunflowers, all that. And so I had actually had landscaping fabric on here all winter, which kind of smothered out the weeds and grass. Grass is kind of coming back, but I've been working at it, just shaking out the sod and all that. Over here was, I had laid down cardboard and put compost on top. And so the cardboard will decompose and it'll be good soil for going in. This used to be a garden a long time ago, like really long time ago. So there wasn't actually a lot of rocks in here when I was digging. So it's all good soil, just recultivating it, and going to grow a wildflower meadow, it's plan, in remembrance of Heidi. Here's an update on my perennial kales, and they didn't really seem to perennialize, meaning they didn't come back as far as I can tell. I think they're technically rated for zone 6. This is zone 4 US or zone 5B Canadian. And yeah, it doesn't look like I'm gonna get them to come back, which is a little bit of a disappointment. But I'm growing more kale anyway, so it's easy to grow and easy to replace. A bunch of fireweed over here. All volunteers. And right here, I don't know if you can see it, but that's my single asparagus that's coming back. And so, at least I'm getting one. One's better than none. Asparagus. And here's that kiddie pool I just had. And it was kind of wrecked. There were some holes on the bottom, so I just decided to make it into a little garden bed here. And so I drilled a whole bunch more holes in the bottom for drainage. Just filled it with compost, and I plan to have this as just a garden dedicated to chamomile. I just want to grow lots of chamomile. And if I can have one space just chamomile, I think that'd be awesome. In my old Victory garden, really not sure what I'm going to do with it this year, but there is, you can see, there is so much St. John's wort growing here. A medicinal herb used to treat things like anxiety and depression. And there's just so much of it growing here. I think I'm just going to have this as my St. John's wort herb garden. Some other herbs growing here too, like clover and that sort of thing. And the mint I had planted here, so I think I'll just have this kind of just dedicated to herbs mainly. So one thing I'm really doing differently this year is a whole new style of gardening. Well, it's been around for a long time. It's basically called Biodynamic Gardening. And it's said to be better than organic. And basically the principles behind that is you plant plants in their plant families, not the scientific plant families, but in the way they grow. So like leaf vegetables, root vegetables, fruit vegetables, and obviously the flowers. And so you plant them based on the alignment with the planets and the stars, which I think is pretty cool. There's a whole kind of a biodynamic calendar you can get, and it tells you the best days to plant which specific types of plants. So this is the Biodynamic Almanac for 2024. It's by Maria Thune, and basically it shows you the dates that are best for which types of crops to either harvest or tend to or sow or that sort of thing. And so what's today? Today is May 1st, and so today looks like it's completely a root day. So this would be the day you either plant root vegetables or harvest root vegetables or sow root vegetables or hoe between root vegetables for getting rid of weeds and stuff. And tomorrow will be root vegetables until 8 in the morning. But this is all Eastern time, so you have to take that into consideration. And then for the rest of the day it's flowers, so that's when you would pick your flowers or sow flower seeds or that sort of thing. And then it's flowers to the next day, Friday until 4. And then the gray area is not favorable to do really anything until 10 p.m. it says. And it's flowers again until 2 a.m. the next day. And then it's leaf vegetables from 3 a.m. to 12 p.m. Then there's another break. Just not really favorable for doing anything in the garden. And then so on and so forth. And so it's a really easy way to keep track of what you can do and that sort of thing. What's the best time to do what, all based on the alignment of the planets in the stars and all that sort of thing. So I find that pretty interesting, and we'll see how this new style of gardening really works for me. Well, that's basically it for today. I'm not going too crazy this year, but just doing enough projects to keep me busy and that sort of thing. It's obviously still a lot of work to do, pulling weeds and that sort of thing, but at least now I can kind of pace myself of what's the best time to do certain things, so it keeps me more organized, even though I don't really have much of a plan other than, like, obviously the new garden, a flower garden I'm growing in the dog run, and that sort of thing, just doing what I can. Well, thanks for joining me on this tour today. I'd like to thank you for your time and just hope you have a great gardening season as well. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.